and always will be.
Tennessee, I canceled all those tea times for the Bayou, by the way. You know, we were born on the Bayou. No, I don't remember what our slogan was. But I canceled all of them. It was going to be such a wonderful vacation. Go down with the club, get there on Sunday night, play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Might even be able to squeeze around in Super Bowl Sunday. But it seems like those plans may have been dashed. I will say this. If the phone rings, and I think Kwesi should answer it because, you know, what are you going to give us for Kevin O'Connell? I mean, what do you got to offer? I mean, probably can't get a couple of ones anymore after last night. But, you know, you could probably get, you know, a protected third, fourth, maybe a compensatory pick somewhere, maybe get a couple of sevens. Rick Spielman would be salivating at the thought of getting a couple of sevens. I didn't see it coming. I know there were people. You did. You called it.
No, I thought it'd be close. So.
No, but I mean, you called the Kitties to win.
Yeah.
There, you know, when I make my my Nostra comment, you know, and I missed it completely. The coach of the year is Dan Campbell. It's not Kevin O'Connell. Sorry.
Yeah.
To get that team to play, that defense to play at that level, decimated by injuries. Doesn't hurt to play at home either, but that's the way the schedule panned out. Biggest play of the game was when Van Ginkel couldn't corral the pass. He's still running if he catches that. No one would have caught him.
Could have been a tie game.
You get the two-y. As a Deuce and I call 2-point conversion, we call it a two-y. You got tutties, figgies, pixies are an interception, and now for a 2-point conversion is a two-y. And then I guess the extra point would just be a onesie or an exie. I don't know. What do you like? A onesie? Sauce knows all about onesies. And by the way, he's not the first person to have it. He had to leave right away today. He just had to head out right away as soon as the show's over. He's not the first. You've had kids. I've had kids. Barrero's had kids. Nordo's had kids. PA's had kids. Gargie's had kids.
Basically, everybody has.
Everybody's had kids. Just, you know, it's... Congratulations, by the way. The game was, I'd said 38-24. I believed it. And when the game started, lines were 3 and out, and they looked discombobulated, right? Wasn't it 3 and out?
First drive?
Yeah, I mean, didn't they have to punt like on a 4th and 28, or it wasn't that long, but, and then the Vikings picked up a couple of quick first downs, and then,
they're 4th and 15.
Yeah. Old Sam Darnold overthrew every wideout there was. It just wasn't. It wasn't Sam's best effort. I don't want to be the guy though to blame it all on Sam, because I think a lot of people are doing that, and I saw the choke word thrown out a lot. And you know, I guess, I mean, I generally don't like to call a guy a choker, but I guess that's the way you would describe it. He certainly didn't help his cause or the team's cause, but it wasn't all his fault. Had a couple of drops. The offense, here's again where I missed it as well. I remember last week I was saying, if you were going to have a most valuable unit, you know, forget the most valuable player in the league or on the team, I thought it was the offensive line. And they weren't up to the task last night like they were prior to that. Detroit said we're going to blitz and we're going to go with man coverage, and I thought that was their undoing. No one has been better against the blitz than Sam Darnold, I think, in the entire league. We had the stat last week, Tennessee. When facing 5 or more players rushing the quarterback, his quarterback rating was 145.2. It wasn't that way last night. It was, and you know, when you think about it, they really weren't that far out of that game.
No.
All the Vikings really needed was a touchdown, a tutty. What do we call it? A toozy?
Toozy?
Is that what I call it?
A deucey?
Deuce? No. What do I call it? A tutty, a toozy, and an onside kick. A tutty, a toozy, and an onside kick. the only silver lining is the season's not over. Now, you're on the road now as the 5 seed, and you got to play a really good Rams team. Matter of fact, would this be the first time in history where, because remember the Vikings lost their first game of the season to the Kitties, then the following 5 days later, they lost to the Rams. They just lost to the Kitties now. What if they lost to the Rams? No one's ever lost to 2 teams back-to-back in the same season like that, I wouldn't think, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I think it would be hard to do.
Well, I guess maybe your own division.
Your own division. If it worked out in your own division.
But even you still have to have the schedule.
Yes, you have to have the schedule work out that way. So there could be a first. And now, when you do look at, we're having this discussion last week about, well, what do you got to sign Sam Darnold. And, after one game, are we ready to say, well, this guy's not any good anymore now? I don't know what to think. It's certainly, and it wasn't even over at the half. I mean, it was the awful kick by Mark Rosen's proclaimed to the best place kick in Vikings history. The Reichard kid squibs the ball. The Lions get a field goal. To me, that wasn't like that big of a deal. It's 10-6. I thought the offense was eventually going to kick against, again, can I use the word again? It's the Triple D, the decimated Detroit defense, and yet they found a way to shut Vikings out. They didn't score a tutty. The red zone numbers are astonishing, and I think when we look at them, it's been like 3 decades since it's been that bad for anybody. We'll take a look at that. We'll pause and return. Post-mortem, Vikings lose to Kitties. What was the final? 31-9?
31-9.
31-9 final score. Short break. Come back with more after this here on The Fan.
Yeah. Wild Wednesdays, sponsored by Jim Beam, the official bourbon of the Minnesota Wild, are here all season long. Listen every Wednesday through March for your chance to win tickets.
I think Avatar's full blown. I want to be the Louis Pasteur of Avatar. I want to find a cure. Avatar is aggravated Vikings anticipatory abandonment reaction syndrome. Didn't even know it existed for years. And it's full blown right now. I mean, if you think the flu, Rona, norovirus, that's one where you're puking your guts out all the time, right? If you think those are full blown, Avatar is 7-county metro. It's who doesn't have it right now? Anybody in the upper Midwest, any Vikings fan. Much like there ain't no cure for the summertime blues, no one is sure if there is a cure for Avatar. We think it's a big game championship, but until that happens, no one will know. I think it's a great salve. Once you've won one, that's why I think the Rams, that's why the McVay guy, they could have gotten the 3rd seed, Tenneby. And he said, it's more important to rest our players. You got to beat everybody. You can't avoid it. I just love the idea. Everybody's like, oh, you want to make sure you win because you want to avoid this team. Then you're playing with fear. If you're playing to avoid teams and your team doesn't have a chance, you're done. Forget it. It's over for you. And they had a chance to get the 3rd seed. So once you've won one, it's a little easier to be loose and fast, right? Mm-hmm. Have fun because I got one in my back pocket. So I can try all kinds of different things. And so that's what the Rams did. The Vikings have to travel there. By the way, the peek at the purple, that's what this is. Brought to you by our friends at Affordable Electric. Affordable Electric is shockingly affordable. Go to affordable-electric.com. Tell them Common told you to make an appointment. They are your old home specialist. They'll do it all for you. Whatever your electrical needs are, they'll take care of it for you. Number of text messages have come into the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line on a couple of different topics. One would be the montage. Some people are bitter about the Dido. Someone said, save it for next Tuesday. It won't work next Tuesday.
That'll be sad eyes.
Yeah, if the Vikings lose, it's sad eyes. Dido's the perfect choice for today. As soon as the gun went off, well, you kind of knew when there was about 5-6 minutes left, it was probably over.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, even at 10-12, it wasn't over. But once it got to 4-6, then I started humming Dido. It's just a natural reaction, is it not? For anybody that listens to the Grum, you start thinking Dido. So it was the right the choice. Well done, Tennessee. A matter of fact, there was this this one text that came in that I think summed it up perfectly. It said, perfect montage. Wait, no. That's not the one I wanted. There was another one that was even better. Can you go ahead and give me the music? I'm sorry. I should have lined this up before. They just come in so quickly. Yeah, forget it. It doesn't matter anyways. Oh, no. Here's what it said. Ready? The montage hasn't even started, and this is one of the most beautiful montages I've ever heard. The music, PA and Pete, the absolute beatdown, everything about this is delicious. I'm guessing this is a Packer fan.
I always love that one.
If only we had more emotion from PA, as he doesn't seem to show enough during these losses. Wait, give yourself a shot there. Someone else said, a couple of people have text messaged on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line that the most important play was the call, the non-call, and the safety. No. The very next play was like a punt. The very next play, Goff threw an interception to Hitman, and they got it about where the Vikings would have got it. So it would have been 2 points.
Yeah.
I get that. So then the final score is 31-11. So I guess you're right. That was the biggest play in the game. That just wasn't the biggest play in the game.
I'm also not sure that was supposed to be called. Now, I think they missed the call on the illegal touching because he threw it off the offensive lineman? Like,
right.
It should have been a penalty.
Right.
But in terms of intentional grounding safety.
I don't think it was, yeah.
Now, we all know he's grounding it, right? So I always find it funny that you call it intentional grounding, and it's obvious when they're intentionally grounding it, yet it's not a penalty. But there was a guy in the vicinity, and he threw it at him.
There he is. That's exactly right. And even if the ball doesn't end up coming close to him because he's being torn down, it's hard to throw a pinpoint pass when you're being dragged to the ground.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the play of the game. I get it. I mean, it's not just Viking fans. It's football fans everywhere. When you lose, you're always searching for reasons other than your team just didn't play very well. You were outplayed, start to finish. It's always the refs got us. This happened, that happened. You know, you just sometimes because it's hard to admit it's hard to face the facts that you just got beat last night, and you did. You got beat. It was not, I think most Viking fans, including myself, I had bought into the idea that this team, I don't want to call it magical, but I said it last week. I was as confident or more confident in this version of the Vikings than I was in 2017, 2009, and even 98. And I know that sounds strange, but the defense had just been playing so well. The job that the Vikings did in acquiring free agent defensive players is astonishing. I don't know who should get the most credit. I still think it's more personnel, B-Flow. Kwesi should get him for signing him. Maybe he's the guy identifying him. I like to give the credit to B-Flow. I think he's the guy that's picking guys. Said this guy would fit my defense. I think B-Flow knows
which guys, yeah.
Right, exactly. And
or fits.
When you've got Van Ginkel, when you've got Grenard, Cashman, who are the others that they brought in? They brought in 2 or 3 others this year. It just and
then you have your guys in the secondary.
And then you already
Gilmore. And
you already had
Shaq, where you at?
Yeah, and you already had Cam Beasy and the Hitman and Metellus, who's really that defense is rock solid. And it was. And so I understand when the offense is playing that well and you're playing a defense that has been decimated by injuries. And to me, it was just I thought this was the first step in getting that number 1 seed. It's vitally. It's not the be all end all. There've been a lot of teams that have gone the wild card route to get there, but it just wasn't meant to be. And it's. I didn't see Darnold playing like that today. And you got to credit the defense from Detroit. You can't say it was all Darnold, but if you're going to list reasons for the Vikings offensive woes, it's got to be Sam Darnold, right? Do you agree?
I think first and foremost, I saw a lot last night when they were struggling with all their red zone issues. People doing, you got to run the ball. Well, in first down, a couple times they did try to run the ball and didn't get a whole lot out of it. And 2 is, I feel like last night KOC was taking heat for some of his play calls. He had play calls where guys are wide open in the end zone.
Yeah.
What else do you want out of a play call? Like your quarterback's got to make that throw, and Darnold didn't. And I think you can give a little bit of the blame to the offensive line because he saw a lot more pressure. And I guess if you want to go the KOC route, maybe as that game goes along and you're recognizing that you're not facing the pressure very well, maybe you got to throw some more screens and short passes and find some way to offset the pressure. But I would also say they're probably not blitzing as much if Darnold's making relatively easy pitch and catches with his receivers. Correct. And they're scoring touchdowns. Then Detroit's probably going, man, we should rethink the way we're playing defense right now. That's correct. So I think I'm one of those guys that after games I hate when everyone tries to pinpoint losses on one guy.
Right.
I do think Darnold takes a huge piece of this pie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. He missed open receivers on a number of occasions. And they generally say, you heard it from Collinsworth last night, when you miss guys high, it's usually because you're jacked and you're just not where you're supposed to be. And so I'm
also not ready to say he's a choker.
No, because, I'm not either. I'm not.
In a pretty big game the previous week against Green Bay, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was.
So I guess we'll find out Monday night.
Monday night, Sunday night.
Whether last night was a trend or a mirage.
You hear that game in this radio station coverage at 5. Kick. I'll be here for the kaboom at 7:20. We'll last one I'll leave you at 10 to be. On the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686 in regards to the montage. It says, I figured Dido was coming today, and as soon as I heard it, I thought to myself, all is right with the world. Well done, Tennessee. Well done. We'll break. We'll come back. More Viking Lions talk here on the Fan. Believe it or not, there are other sports stories that we might want to touch on as the afternoon progresses. PJ Fleck wins another. Did I say Flick? PJ Fleck wins another championship. That's what he called it after the game.
I heard that.
It's nice to end the season as champions. They win the Duke Mayo Bowl, big one. A lot of people like the Duke Mayo. I'm more of a. I like the Pop-Tart Bowl. It's one of my favorites. And the Dunkin' Donut Bowl is another one I really like. But Duke Mayo Bowl is not bad either. Wild, Tennessee, despite the injuries, a situation, continue to win hockey games. Digging down deep, finding a way to win. And then Ant, who lives where, Tennessee?
Rent-free in your head.
How about this? He goes off for 15, 16 points, whatever it was, 2 games ago. And he's complaining about, I don't have any answers. I'm getting double-teamed. The very next night, he goes off for 53, but the rest of the team scores almost less than that, and they get beat. And they're just, I'm still waiting. I was, and maybe they will eventually gel, but when is that going to happen? Because when you and I were kind of wondering, what's going on here? What's the issue? Oh, just calm down, Common. Calm down. Just it takes time to gel. Well, it sure ain't gelling yet, and I don't know how much time we're supposed to wait. But we'll get to all of those as well. Tennessee, are you a big OptaStats guy? It's one of my favorite websites.
I don't know if I know what OptaStats is.
OptaStats, great website. Here's what it said about the Vikings. The Vikings tonight, of course, this was done late last night. So if you want me to change it to the Vikings last night, 4 times they reached the red zone, but did not score a TD. 3 times they had goal to go, but did not score a TD. They had 2 failed 4th and goal attempts and 1 missed field goal. No other NFL team in the last 30 years has done all of that in the same game. Because you just don't get enough opportunities probably to do that in the same game. They had as many opportunities as they wanted. The safety didn't have anything to do with it. Don't fool yourself. Don't talk about penalties, because you know what? As they're showing highlights, you see both teams holding jerseys, grabbing onto this. Great, happens all. You can't call them all. They were just beat. It wasn't good, and I think they were blindsided by it. I don't think they expected it. I think they were supremely confident, and well, they should have been. I was as confident in the team as I've been. Like I said, since going back to all the the I don't know if we want to call them historic seasons, but seasons in which the Vikings made deep runs in postseason play. Now you have to get ready for the Rams, a team who, like I say, the head coach of that club, it may not end up working in his favor, but instead of playing to win to get that third seed, so it'd be 3 versus 6, he was comfortable being 4 against 5. He said so. Yeah. He said you can't avoid them all, and they wanted to get you get that. You have the week before their game yesterday, and then you don't play anybody. Nobody gets wear and tear and gets beat up, and then you have that other week as you approach. So you're basically getting 2 weeks before you have to play again, and that gives a lot of those guys an opportunity because, let's face it, Tennessee, there's nobody healthy. You might have a quarterback or two that's in good shape, but all the other players, they got something. It's a toe, it's a shin, it's an ankle, it's a knee, there's something, a shoulder. There's all sorts of issues, and so and the Rams,
as I said last week during Spread Swing, their main guys have an injury history.
Yes.
Right? And they are not the same team when any of their key guys are out. I'm talking, obviously, Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Kyren Williams. When they're all together, which they're going to be in the playoff game, that's been a tough team to beat.
And, they're good. They beat us once earlier this year. Was that an OT game? Did that go to overtime,
No.
or am I wrong? But it was close, right? We lost by 6, 8. I think we lost by. I don't remember. Again, I don't remember exactly how the game went down, but
we lost 30-20.
10-point game, 10-point difference. That's a good club. I'm sure they're going to take a page out. I think they're just going to sit there, and Stafford's talented. Running back's good. Wide receivers, as you mentioned, it's going to be tough. But it can be done. Now, tend to be if everything holds to chalk, except Vikings beating Rams, would the Vikings then go to Detroit? Is that how it would work out? Right.
Well, it depends on the other matchups.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If the others hold chalk,
yes.
If 2 beats 7,
if the 2 and 3 seeds win,
yeah.
If all the home teams win,
if all the home teams win,
except for us,
then the Vikings would be against Detroit again. And I don't know if you saw it last week, you could hear it, where last night when Dan Campbell met KOC at midfield, he said, "We'll see you in 2 weeks." I think there's a distinct possibility. And again, I get it. I'm seeing it on the message boards here in the office with some, not everybody, but some of the fans, and then just here at booth at the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, where there are people already, well, it's over. We're going to get beat by the. And I know that's a natural reaction after. Yeah. I think everybody was pretty pumped up about our chances last night against Detroit, and I understand why, as I've documented here a couple of times today. And to lose that game in the fashion that they did, with Darnold playing as poorly as he did, I think that's a wake up call. It's a cold slap in the face. And then just last week we were talking about, well, you might have to franchise Darnold, and you might have to sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal. And I was one of those guys. I get the reason why you wouldn't want to. You want to go, we've got McCarthy. We drafted who we think is going to be a franchise quarterback. You save a lot of money that you can use in other places. The Vikings have, of their defensive unit, which is solid, really solid, an excellent defensive unit. How many of those guys are on 1 year deals? 5, 6, 7 of them, right? They're on 1 year deals. So it's like, well, after the way they performed, I don't think Van Ginkel, Grenard, Cashman, any of those guys, I don't think they're going to take hometown discounts to you. They're going to say, well,
Grenard got the big deal, so I think he should be locked up.
He already got a big deal.
I feel like Van Ginkel had one of those 2 year, $20 million deals. Okay. But when they do perform, and they have a year left, if you want to re-sign them, you got to do it now. So you're still going to have to pay those guys, even if they're not on 1 year deals.
Now, because I'm really never listening to you, I'm just waiting for my turn to talk on the Dark Star. Where were you on Darnold heading into last night's game, and have you changed your mind at all after one pretty shoddy performance?
Well, I think I've been pretty consistent the whole time about, we all want to have this discussion about should they re-sign him, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, let the season play out.
Yeah.
Things can happen. Things can change. I was leaning, you let him go and you start J.J. McCarthy. But I was willing to change my mind if they had a deep playoff run. So I'm still willing to change my mind on that, right? If Sam Darnold shows you he's a NFC Championship, Super Bowl, big game caliber quarterback, well, then I'll change my mind on it.
Yeah.
But, and all this time we've been talking about Darnold, and I say, well, it depends on what they think of J.J. McCarthy. If they think they can get the same out of J.J. McCarthy that you're getting out of Sam Darnold, then as great as Darnold was, you let him go. Because he's going to get, even after last night's performance, Darnold's still going to get paid a lot.
Yeah.
It's a bad quarterback year. There's not a lot of options in free agency. There's not a lot of high-end guys in the draft. Like, Darnold's going to get paid, even though last night was a setback, and maybe Monday night will be a setback. But he's going to get paid regardless. I guess maybe it's the difference between, $30 million and $40 million, or $40 million and $50 million at this point. But I've been on before the season, when J.J. McCarthy got hurt, KFC said, hey, Vikings fans, I'm convinced you have your franchise quarterback for the years to come. So
that's what
he didn't need to say that at the time.
No. They
and frankly, last night was the performance like everyone's been afraid of with Sam Darnold. It's why it's been so hard for people to buy into him. Even though he's been playing well, almost top 5 MVP type candidate all season long, people have always been waiting for the other shoe to drop. I still think he can rebound from last night, but that's the performance Vikings fans have been worried about.
Yeah. Mark Craig, esteemed writer, Fish Wrap Factory West Side, covers the NFL, has for years. He has a Hall of Fame vote, That's how high up the sports writing echelon he is. Covers the Vikings and the National Football League for the Fish Wrap Factory. After every game, he does the 5 extra points, things he's noticed about the game that he thinks are important. It's a really nice piece that I look forward to every week. Number 1 was defense traveled. Darnold didn't. Vikings had an interception inside the Detroit 10-yard line, 3 tackles for losses of 18 yards, an 11-yard sack, and a pass batted down by tackle Jonathan Bullard on 4th and 1, and they still trailed 10-6 at halftime. And that's your cold slap in the face when you look at how well that defense played in that first half, and yet they still trailed by 4. I still wasn't convinced that the Lions were on their way to a 31-10 victory or 31-9 victory. I still had the feeling that, especially coming out of the half, I thought somehow KOC and their offense, who's their offensive coordinator? Wes Phillips.
Ben Johnson. Oh, you're sorry.
Wes Phillips would come up with some sort of adjustment to say, okay, this is what's happening. But then when you think about it, like you said, I don't know if there was so many adjustments to make, because there were times where the plays were called, guys were open.
They could have had 21 points in the first half.
So it's like, did there really need to be any adjustments? And probably not. You just need to have a quarterback to make the right throws. Now, there were a few of those throws, too, that weren't bad throws where there was some good coverage by Detroit, too.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't, that's why it's hard for me to put all the blame on Darnold, but they were glaring, the misses. They were glaring. I mean, the one over the middle to Hawkinson was at our second drive. Is that the one where twice he missed Hawkinson? But I think it was the second drive where there was no one within 10, 15 yards of him anywhere, behind, ahead, either side. And Darnold just flew on him, right? It just soared on him. He couldn't. And
he did that in the couple times with Jefferson in the end zone.
Yes. And
just throwing him high.
And we talked about Darnold went into the game with the league best 139.6 passer rating when blitzed. The Lions blitzed him 9 times in 21 first half dropbacks. So that's almost half the time, right? He was mostly terrible, completing just 3 passes for 57 yards. And one of those was that 31-yarder to Jefferson at the Detroit 5. But Darnold also threw high when he had time to throw, missing an open Jefferson twice in goal-to-go situations, including a 4th down. Darnold was blitzed 15 times, completing only 5 passes for 77 yards, a sack, an intentional grounding penalty, and multiple wild throws. And that's what I did not see coming. I did not see that coming and that's why it's dangerous, and that's why sometimes you break your own rules. When I look at statistics, sabermetrics, analytics, they do tell a story, but just because he had his 139.6 passer rating when blitzed doesn't mean it's going to carry over to the next game, and it certainly didn't last night. And is that, the theory is it's the bright lights of a big game, right? Because, there were, I don't know, to me this is a little hyperbole, but, there were those saying, this is the biggest regular season game in the history of the National Football League because of what was at stake. A 1 seed, a 5 seed, a first week bye, 2 games at home, got to go 3 games on the road to win the big game. So the stakes were high, and so am I. It's in the air tonight. It's a free-for-all. Oh, sorry. So the stakes were high, and is that what happened last night? Is that just too jacked up? Nervous? Like you say, that I don't really like throwing around the choke label, but sometimes maybe it's inevitable. Because it was thrown around a lot by a lot of media people after last night's game. And you wonder, does that carry over? Now, I talked about this about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Vikings coming off a game where he had 2 interceptions and then 3 interceptions. And I said, what we don't know is what's going on in his head, right? Is he able to, like, you're supposed to be like an Etch-a-Sketch. Do you know what an Etch-a-Sketch is?
Of course.
So an Etch-a-Sketch, you do your little lines, you turn it over, you shake it, and you got a clean slate. And that's what you kind of want.
You need him to be a goldfish.
Oh, I haven't heard that one. What's that?
Yeah, the goldfish, they don't have a memory at all.
They don't
remember anything. So if something bad happens, you forget it instantly and you just move on.
Or meat sauce, you could call it, too,
yeah,
I guess. So a goldfish or the Etch-a-Sketch where you shake it and you've got a clean slate you don't remember. And what I was concerned with is, would he lose some confidence? Would he remember? Because that's when he tried to force it into to JJ 3 times, 3 times in the game, and none of them worked, right? But he came back and he played pretty close to. He was. People were putting his name into the most valuable player conversation. Would have been hard for him to win it with the way Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are playing, but that's how highly regarded he was and how well he'd been playing ever since that point.
I'm looking at the schedule. He's played 7 straight good games.
Yes.
The last poor one was at Jacksonville, where he had the 3 interceptions.
And they still won the game. But you're right, that was the last one.
That was the last time he played poorly. From now on, 7 good games in a row from Sam Darnold.
And so that's why I had sort of thought, okay, he does have the mental toughness. He was able to rebound from a couple of bad games against bad opponents on the road and come back and play at the level that he did. And there's help. It's not all the quarterback. But Tenneby, his notorious DIG, taught us all those years ago, quarterback is the most important position in all of sports. And so that's why if the Vikings went in supreme, certainly they weren't overlooking Detroit, but if they went in supremely confident, I don't blame them. The offense is playing as good as any offense in pro football the past 7 weeks. And the defense, we talked about the numbers. That's what was surprising last night, too. The Vikings went into that game number 2 against the rush, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs' first, was it 4, 5, 6 runs? I don't remember the number. He basically had 1 yard rushing. He had nothing. The Vikings were anticipating them giving the ball to Gibbs. They did give the ball to Gibbs, and they were able to stop Gibbs. And then all of a sudden, that guy got
Van Ginkel destroyed him on the one.
Oh, destroyed him. And it looked like he was hurt at first.
Yeah.
You wonder if there was some helmet-to-helmet contact because he wasn't getting up. But then when they showed the replay, good, clean tackle. And, not enough to send him to the tent to see if he had a concussion because he didn't get hit in the head. But, yeah, he blew him up on that play. But they didn't abandon the run going to Gibbs. And the guy's a great talent, Tenneby.
Yes.
And I remember when he was drafted, 12th overall. Did I read the Mel Kiper quotes from last week that I've stumbled across in the Detroit Free Press? And Kiper wasn't the only one. when the Lions selected him 12th overall, people are going, what are you doing? You don't draft a running back in the first round.
Especially him. They thought Bijan Robinson would go there because he was a generational talent, but people didn't think he'd go in the first round. He went 12th. And
he's been worth every pick. That instead of, and I think Kuiper's piece even said, well, they could have got Gibbs somewhere 40, 50, somewhere in there. And they very well could have. But I don't
take that risk.
Well, that's it. I think you probably agree with me there. If you identify a guy that you think is going to be, you don't want to take a chance. Could the Holmes character, the GM for the Lions, and Ben Johnson and all the personnel people, could they have predicted Gibbs would be this good? They must have thought so because they drafted him 12th overall. And if you've got a guy and you've identified him and put a label on him that this guy is a game-changing player, you got to draft him when you do, right? You have to draft him.
And they actually did move down. They had the 6th pick, so they went from 6 to 12.
Because I'm sure they figured he'd be still around in 12, but after that, they didn't want to take any more chances. Yeah, and I don't think you can deny how much Anzalone meant last night getting back for the Lions. I think he had 7 tackles, a quarterback hit or 2. I mean, he was exceptional last night, and that's where I thought they were going to be in real trouble because the only linebacker they had left from the starting 11 players, they were down to 5 starters from the beginning of the year, was the Campbell kid, another guy that was selected in the first round by the Lions as a linebacker. And people said the same thing about that. I think the Lions got some bad grades for that draft early on because, how do you select a linebacker? And I don't, Campbell was really good, but I don't think he was looked upon league-wide by scouts and analysts and media people as this guy's going to be. And I'm not saying he's Dick Butkus and Nick Bonacani and who's my other guy? Ray Nitschke, but he's really good. But Anzalone, his contributions last night cannot be.
Well, if you look at Detroit, if they don't have, every team's going to have injuries, but if they're not as injury riddled as they are, and Aiden Hutchinson's playing, you're talking about an all-time maybe great team.
Do you think they would be considered the greatest football team of all time?
Can't rule it out.
You can't rule it out.
No.
But
it's the year of the cat.
Yeah, it could be the year of the cat.
I think they're just a bad matchup for us.
Yeah.
And the Rams, with the way they can play, they might be a bad matchup for us, too.
You sent me a link to a tweet that says, the Jets have put in a request to interview Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores for their head coaching position per source. How about we do this, Tenneby? We sign Brian Flores as our head coach, call the Jets and say, we'll trade you O'Connell for Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
Oh my gosh.
Adams, Jet, Addison.
Let's go.
How good would we be then?
You know who I got interest in?
Who?
He wants out of Miami. Tyreek Hill.
Ooh.
I like our wide receivers, but we don't really have a yak threat, a guy you can throw the ball to and can get you some extra yards. And I think against a team like Detroit that blitzes the bleep out of you.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have one of those guys who could just do a 5-yard crossing, you throw it to him, and he runs for an extra 40 after it.
Yeah, you can use that. That's what the...
any team could use Tyreek Hill, I get it, but...
That's what the Jameson kid does for Detroit.
Yeah.
And he's still...
He did it on that one big play.
Yeah, he's still a long way away, but... the other thing was there were at least 2, if not 3 or 4 plays where the Vikings blitzed, and Goff had literally a second and a half, 2 seconds to get rid of the ball, and he threw dimes every time.
Yes.
Just threw dimes. And that's a guy... This guy has gotten so much better than he was when he was taking the Rams to the big game. But it's not over, Tenneby. I think the Vikings, there's a distinct possibility they could be seeing Detroit again in 2 weeks. I really do. We'll take a break, 5:34, top of the hour. Is the coach today, or is he...
I haven't heard. I'll have to see if I can look it up somewhere.
Coach usually does a day after the game presser, and we always carry that. But maybe they're coming back late. Maybe they're breaking down film. Got an extra day. They don't play on Monday, so maybe he puts it off to Tuesday. I don't know, but if he has it, we'll do it. We'll take a break and come back with 534. What you got, Tennessee? Do you got a tease?
Yeah, can we see a Rex Ryan reunion?